Royal Rumble 2007 went down on January 28th, 2007 at the AT&T Center in San Antonio, Texas. The listed attendance for this is about 13,500. We had 3 different announced teams for this as well, because this was back when they had the 3 brands, Raw, SmackDown, and ECW. We had Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross on the Raw call. We had JBL and Michael Cole on the SmackDown call. And, of course, we had Taz and Joey Styles calling the matches for ECW. First match we got on the card was Eminem, Mercury, Melina, and Johnny Nitro taking on the Hardy Boys. Now, the Hardy Boys weren't really together as a team at this time very much. Jeff Hardy was the Intercontinental Champion. Matt Hardy, I believe, might have been working in ECW. I can't remember where the hell he was at the time. And, of course, Eminem was there featuring Joey Mercury and a very, very young John Morrison, back then, of course, known as Johnny Nitro, when they were with Melina. I always liked their presentation, thought they were a good-looking tag team. We've seen a lot of those, like flashy type of teams, but the way they did it, I thought, was a really good start for Morrison's career, and I have fond memories of that team. Now, they were right off of the heels of the Armageddon TLC match, which I believe was a multi-team match, and that was the match that saw what, to this day, I believe, might be the gnarliest injury I've ever seen in wrestling, and that was when Joey Mercury took the ladder to the face. In the TLC match at Armageddon, they tried to do the seesaw spot, which has been done countless times by the Hardy Boys in various TLC or ladder matches, but this time, Mercury did not get his hands up, or the whole thing was just botched, and that ladder hit him square in the face at about 100 miles an hour, immediately smashing his nose, breaking his nose. Upon impact, his eye was completely swollen shut. They did the close-up of his face with the blood coming down his nose. He didn't know where the hell he was. I cannot believe he survived that. And it was only a month ago. It was 1 month prior to this, in the month of December, where that happened. And here we are in January at the Royal Rumble, and this motherfucker is working a match. Now, Mercury had that big, nose guard on, but still, if it was me, I would have been out for 13 years. There's just no way. My God, just one of the nastiest injuries, and I'm so glad that Mercury wound up surviving that and was able to get back in the ring. The match was decent, nothing great. It was really interesting to see John Morrison so young. He had just come on the scene here, just a year or two removed from Tough Enough, whenever that was. One thing I did notice about the match that was extremely annoying was Melina on the outside of the ring with this constant screaming. Now, Melina wasn't one of my favorites, but I didn't necessarily dislike her, and I know a lot of my audience has fond memories of Melina. I don't know how big of a fan I really was of her personally, because of the stories that we've heard between her and Nitro and Batista and all that stuff, but also, I didn't really think that she was that great of a wrestler, but a lot of fans loved Melina, and she was great. She definitely served a purpose, and she looked great with Mercury and Nitro, but I don't remember her always doing that screaming gimmick. Was she just doing it for this match, or is that something that she regularly did? Because I guess I must have forgotten about it, but when she was screaming like that during this match, it was driving me crazy to where I was fast-forwarding a couple of times. Jeff Hardy winds up blind tagging his brother Matt as Matt and Mercury spill out to the outside. Jeff climbs to the top and hits Johnny Nitro with the Swanton Bomb for the win, and the Hardy Boys keep rolling. So you thought here they might try to do some sort of a revenge angle, because Mercury and Nitro were blaming the Hardys for what happened to Joey Mercury. They even attacked Matt Hardy on SmackDown the week before, or maybe the week before that, and gave him a DDT on the exposed concrete on the outside of the ring. So they were building up this feud like there was some actual heat here, but in the end, you just saw the Hardys put away Eminem, and that was that. We had our first of several backstage cutbacks to where Jonathan Coachman and Teddy Long and Kelly Kelly are in the room where you pick out your Royal Rumble balls or your Royal Rumble selections, and they've got the big wheel and they're spinning it. They have Edge and Randy Orton come in first to pick their balls, and they do this really cheesy spot. I almost laughed, because if they would have done this same skit or this same segment on Raw in modern times in 2020, we as fans collectively would have been shitting all over the cheesy cringiness of it. Because after Randy Orton and Edge pull out their balls, Randy Orton says, what did you get? And then Edge says, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. And then that's when King Booker enters the room, and he hears that, and of course he does the "tell me you didn't say that" thing. So that was cringe, didn't like it, really stupid. We then move on to an ECW title match next. Champion Bobby Lashley taking on Test. Oh, Test. You know, he would be dead 2 years later. Can you believe that? I believe he died in 2009, early 2009, so he would only be alive for 2 more years, and he was freakishly big around this time. He looked great. I was always a big fan of Test. I think I liked him more when he first came in, you know, the 1999, 2000, 2001 years. I thought that was best Test in my mind, but here, he kind of changed his look up and even got bigger than he already was. And he was just a monster. Taking on another monster, Bobby Lashley, which when I look at him and I think about where Lashley is currently creatively in WWE in 2020, in the middle of this Rusev and Lana situation, my God, how far we have come. And Lashley, he looks the same. This show was 13, count them, years ago. 13 years ago, and Bobby Lashley does not look 1 day older. It's kind of like R-Truth. So, wow, just looking at him in this match. So the only thing really different about Lashley is back then in 2007, he actually had eyebrows. Other than that, he looks identical to what he looks like now. Kind of a shitty finish here as well. Not sure what they were really going for here. I guess they didn't really want to beat Test. But Test, after injuring his shoulder outside the ring, he kind of is holding his shoulder, and as the referee's counting, he just doesn't get back in the ring. You know, he's standing right there. He's right next to the apron. The referee's at an 8 count, goes to 9, and then Test just starts walking away and gets intentionally counted out. So Lashley wins via count out, but then he goes after Test, grabs him, brings him back in the ring, and hits him with a power slam. So Test, on a Royal Rumble, one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year, they did an intentional count out. Not sure if I really agree with that finish, but whatever. We cut backstage again. This time John Cena is in the training room. He's really beat up because during the build to his match with Umaga, he's been getting his ass kicked on Monday Night Raw. Vince McMahon barges in the room like a complete fucking asshole. You know, I almost forget sometimes what a dick the Vince McMahon character was. And around this time, he was at peak dickness, that's for sure. Around 2006, when he's feuding with Shawn Michaels and having tag team matches with God, all the way to 2007, where he's getting Donald Trump involved and getting his head shaved and stuff. He was at peak asshole Vince at this time. So he barges in and starts shit talking to Cena and tells Cena that he should forfeit the title, and Vince is very confident that he will not leave Royal Rumble as WWE champion. So Vince really wants Cena to lose, I guess. Vince then leaves, goes through the door, and as the door is opening and closing, you catch a quick glimpse of Tommy Dreamer dressed up in a really sweet-ass suit. So good to see the hardcore legend back there. We'd see him again later in the Royal Rumble. Next up, we had the World Heavyweight title on the line. Batista defending the title against Mr. Kennedy. Now, Kennedy won a Beat the Clock challenge on SmackDown to earn this opportunity. And he was kind of starting to bubble around that time. We remember, those of us watching at that time, there was a lot of hype around Kennedy. And he would go into WrestleMania to win the Money in the Bank briefcase, correct? And then they would take it away from him by having him drop it to Edge, which I always look back on as such a weird situation, because I think Kennedy and WWE creatively kind of fucked themselves. When Kennedy won the briefcase, he said that he's going to cash it in 1 year later at WrestleMania. And I thought that was a fantastic concept, but it also opens you up for something else to happen, for plans to change, for you to get injured. There's no guarantee that you will make it a full 365 days. Kennedy never had a true run with that briefcase and never got a chance to have a title match. He was also rumored to be the illegitimate son of Vince McMahon that turned out to be Horn fucking Swoggle. But Kennedy made a lot more sense, because he's a young, up-and-coming wrestler who's gaining popularity, and his name is the same as Vince McMahon's middle name. It would have been perfect if they went with Kennedy. But WWE soured on him real quick. There was the big problem with the basketball 10-man tag and Randy Orton and something like that, and Kennedy would get released 2 years after this. But around 2007, we still thought that Kennedy being a champion in the company was a very likely possibility. This was a really good fight. Batista, I never was a big fan of him back in the day, when he was champion and when he was on top, but I grew to love Dave Batista in recent years, just who he is personally and his success. I'm happy for him. I'm proud of him. He's a great man. But back then, I was still suffering from the Brock Lesnar hangover. I still couldn't believe he was gone. And to me, Brock, there was nobody physically more impressive than him in terms of what he could do in the ring and his look and his true athleticism and his true toughness. I thought Batista was a good look, but not much else. I thought Batista had a lot of that Lex Luger, Ultimate Warrior type of stuff in him. But looking back, when Batista wanted to go, he could go. And I don't think I really gave Batista enough credit during his run on top during these years like 2005, 6, and 7, and 8. He could go, and he was good, and he impressed me in this match. Nick Patrick is your referee for this thing, and he gets accidentally hit by Batista like a back elbow by accident and goes down at one point in the match, and that's when Kennedy hits Batista. He might hit him with his finisher or whatever, and actually has the match won. Has Batista pinned with no referee. So Kennedy goes to revive the referee, brings Nick Patrick over to count the 1, 2, 3 again, but Batista kicks out. So they were really pushing that, Kennedy, even if he loses here, he had Batista beat. In the end, though, Batista would recover and wind up Batista bombing Kennedy on his way to successfully retaining his title, and he would then go on to WrestleMania, of course, to face the winner of the Royal Rumble. So not a crazy match here, nothing that spectacular, but, Kennedy is kind of a blip in the radar in wrestling, so when you see him in a high-profile match in WWE, he didn't have very many of those because he wasn't around very long. So this was an interesting match to take a look back at because I probably haven't seen anything from this show in over 10 years. So believe it or not, I actually enjoyed this one. We cut backstage again where more wrestlers are selecting their Royal Rumble numbers. We have Kevin Thorne and Shelly Martinez come in. Speaking of people who weren't in the WWE for very long, Kevin Thorne never seemed to get anything good going in WWE despite his run as Mordecai and then this, different type of gimmick with Shelly Martinez, this vampire-y looking shit. I was never a big fan of it to begin with, but kind of sad that he never really got on the map in WWE. We also saw Hornswoggle come in, who's screaming and grunting and going nuts. He's followed by the great Khali, who reaches in the barrel and pulls out 2 balls. And Kelly says, hey, you're only allowed to have 1 ball. Or maybe he picked out 3 balls. And she goes, hey, you can only have 1 ball. So he just drops 2 of them and walks away with his 1 ball. And then Kelly picks the balls up, and in a similarly cringy segment to the Edge and Orton one, Kelly's holding the balls, and she goes, wow, these are 2 really perfect balls, or something really fucking dumb like that. And as soon as she says it, Ron Simmons is behind her, and he hits her with the damn. I'll tell you what, man, these backstage segments they were doing on this show were horrible. Absolutely horrible. Next up is one of my favorite matches in modern WWE times. Might have been one of my favorite matches or favorite match of the entirety of 2007, which, of course, with what would happen in the summertime was not a good year for professional wrestling. But this match was so damn good. We had John Cena, WWE champion, defending his title against Umaga in a last man standing match. Now, Cena and Umaga had a match at the previous pay-per-view, New Year's Revolution, where Cena beat Umaga with a quick roll-up. So then on TV, they had Armando, what was that guy's name? Estrada. I kind of forgot about him and how obnoxious and over the top he was. So they show the recap of what went down on TV, and that's when Estrada says that he's going to have to defend his title against Umaga in a last man standing match. Cena looks a little bit terrified about that possibility, and I remember being a huge Umaga fan. I liked the gimmick. I thought he was... I've always been a mark for the Samoans. And by the way, rest in peace to Rocky Johnson, the father of The Rock, who, as of recording this commentary, I'm recording this on Wednesday, and I just found out about his passing about an hour ago. So that is really sad. Just wanted to throw that out there while I am talking about Umaga. But, I liked the gimmick. I liked kind of the savage Samoan type of modern day twist on an Afa or Sika with the face paint, and he was a lot more intense, and the Samoan spike, and the entire character I just thought was a great heel. I mean, he really was. Now, guys like that, Umaga, it would have been the same for him if he was in WWE in 1986. He would have just been a great heel for Hogan to work with. So that's all he really was here, being used to put Cena over as this next big megastar that's on their hands, because up until this point, Cena was only champion for less than 2 years. Won his first title at WrestleMania 21, and now we're only in early 2007 here. But by this point, the crowd had already started to sour on Cena. But you wouldn't know it by watching this match, because back then I still think Cena had a lot of fans out there, and when Cena delivers and puts on a great match, the fans can kind of forget how bad they hate him, because this match was really, really good. Umaga controls the match pretty dominantly early on, introduces one of the steel steps from the outside of the ring, throws them in the ring, and somehow Cena is able to knock Umaga outside of the ring, and one of the first of many great spots in this match, Cena picks up the steps and throws them over the top rope, and they just blast Umaga right in the face. Goes down on the outside of the ring. Awesome spot. Umaga would later on then go for the second half, or the other half of these steel steps, because they break in two. So he now picks the second half up, throws those in the ring, and finds himself on the receiving end of those again. Cena gets Umaga down on the steel steps and goes for a 5-knuckle shuffle, hitting him with that. And then in another really good spot that looked great, Cena is going for the FU on the steps, but he collapses. He cannot support the weight of Umaga, and Cena's face just goes right down in the little corner of the steps, and it almost just gets smashed in there. Now, the camera angle was perfect because it was not nearly as bad as it looked. It just looked really bad, and Cena just goes straight down, and that's where he takes the opportunity to blade. So Cena is down kind of out of view of the camera because he's kind of hiding behind the steps for quite a while. He comes up with just blood all over his face, and I just thought it was a really good spot, because when you look at it, it's plausible that he could have gotten busted open hard way. I mean, I don't think he did, but the way he landed there, you're like, Jesus, did Umaga just squash Cena's entire head? So that was really well done, I thought. Cena, now with blood streaming down his face, really starts to pick up the pace and starts fighting hard against Umaga. They do this great spot, a spot so great that I pulled out my phone, recorded it, and put it on Twitter. It's John Cena and Umaga trading right hands in the ring. Cena's got blood all over his face and then starts hitting his own head, psyching himself up, punching Umaga. He hits the ropes, dives into Umaga. Umaga catches him and hits him with a Samoan drop, and John Cena takes one of the grossest bumps I've ever seen on a Samoan drop. Just gets folded up, lands right on his shoulder and neck, and his legs come across the body of Umaga. It has to be seen to be believed. My God. Yet another great spot a little bit later on the outside of the ring, where John Cena and Umaga start tearing apart the announce desks. Well, I think Umaga goes for maybe a shoulder tackle in the ropes, and he posts himself. So he's kind of laying on the middle turnbuckle, just posting himself, and he's completely still. And Cena grabs one of those TV monitors, and back in those days, they were still using those big, heavy metal TV monitors on the announce table. So he grabs one of those things, and they have Umaga's head positioned so perfectly on the ring post that Cena is able to swing that monitor at Umaga's head, and it just makes the most sickening sound. And it was much like the stairs spot in the middle of the ring. It was so perfectly done. Great camera angle, great sell job by both guys, and Umaga just crumples back in the ring after being nailed with that TV monitor. It looked so painful. So after Cena turns Umaga's head into a watermelon with that TV monitor, he gets up from this. Umaga is able to survive the 10 count and actually regain control of the match and of Cena, and in probably what I think most people will say was the spot of the night. Umaga gets Cena on the announce desk because they have all three brands' announce desks lined up in a row on the outside of the ring. So you have ECW over by the Timekeepers area, then SmackDown, then Raw. So John Cena is smashed, his face is smashed on the ECW announce table, and he's kind of laying face down on it, but his legs are on the floor. Umaga then walks all the way down to the Raw table. By this time, Estrada has cleared the way of all the TV monitors, and they basically made this long runway for Umaga. He stands on the Raw table and just starts running across the Raw, SmackDown, and ECW table and dives onto Cena, only for Cena to move and the announce table to explode underneath Umaga. What a spot. Umaga, however, barely gets up. I think a lot of fans, when we were watching this, thought that it was the finish. Little did we know the finish would be oh so much better than even this. But the referee is counting, and it doesn't look like Umaga's going to make it, but he does. At literally like the 9 9/10, he's able to stand up, saving the count. And that's when Estrada starts going for the top turnbuckle. He starts unhooking and taking apart the top turnbuckle, like completely detaching it from the ring post. And he does. He's got the tool or the wrench or whatever you need to unwind that thing. He detaches it from the ring post and gives it to Umaga. So now the ring has no top rope, or no top rope connected on one ring post. And he hands the turnbuckle to Umaga because there's this big long piece of steel attached to it. And the intent here, I guess, is to use that as a weapon. Umaga would then go to blast Cena with it, but he blocks it and hits an AA on Umaga and then takes the ring rope, wraps it around Umaga's neck, and starts putting him in the STFU. And even Jim Ross shouts out, "God damn." That's how good this was. Jim Ross just shouts out, "God damn." And Cena has got that ring rope now that Estrada, that Umaga's own guy, brought into the match. He has that thing wrapped around the neck of Umaga, and he's got him in the STFU. And the visual of John Cena screaming as he's pulling on that rope with the blood trickling down his face and the blood landing on Umaga was just amazing drama. And Umaga survives this too. He survives the first attempt when the referee starts doing the 10 count, and he's able to stand up prior to that, and that's when John Cena goes full psycho. He just goes sling blade on this motherfucker and goes nuts, grabs the top rope again, wraps it around his neck, throws Umaga to the ground, and just pulls as hard as he can on that STFU until Umaga is drooling from the mouth, finally lets him go, and the referee is able to count the full 10 count, and Umaga is down. And like John Cena or not, you know, I've talked a lot about John Cena over the years on my channel. This, to me, is just proof that back in those days, like him or not, Cena was a bona fide star. This was amazing. And the crowd is going nuts after the win. And John Cena, which he has done several times, I think he did the same thing in a ladder match with Edge at one point, after he won and retained the title, he almost had like a look of disappointment on his face. Like, my God, what did I have to go through? You know, almost questioning, is all of this worth it? I nearly had to murder a man just to save my title. And I always liked when Cena did that. He would just put on the fight of a lifetime, blood streaming down his face, literally nothing left in his tank, and he looks down at the championship that he has either won or retained, and he almost has like a look of disbelief or disappointment as to what he had to do, the places he had to take himself to in order to hang on to that. I thought in and of itself was a good story. So, you know, I think I support Cena even more when I go back and look at some of these matches, because this one was phenomenal, and it's one that you guys talk about all the time. So bravo. If you guys have not seen this match before for any reason, or if you haven't seen it in a while, I invite you to take a look at it again. It was amazing. We're backstage again after this amazing match. We have to go back to this cringy nonsense with Teddy and Coachman and Kelly. This time we get the Sandman coming in to draw his number. I think he even smashes a beer can over his forehead, and we had Ric Flair coming in to draw his number. And then for some reason, after he draws his number, the lights go off. You have like disco lights come on, and Kelly is joined by Layla, and I think her name was Brooke. I forget the other girl's name. And they just have a big dance party with the Nature Boys, styling and profiling. So that was weird. Now it's time for the Royal Rumble match. This is another match that a lot of you have fond memories of. And I enjoyed this match a lot, but I think I really enjoyed the ending. The ending is what made this match for sure, because I'm not going to talk about a whole lot in the first half of the match. I actually, you know, without this ending, without this great finish that we had, I might have even considered this Royal Rumble a dud. You know, there was a lot in there that wasn't that intriguing to me, but I would have my mind changed by the time we got to the climax of this match. They combined the announced teams for this. I believe they put Jerry Lawler, JBL, and Michael Cole on the call for the Royal Rumble match. I have to shout out Lillian Garcia, who just looked incredible on this night. Shout out to Lillian. She's amazing. I've always been a Lillian mark. We then get to find out who came out at number 1, and it was, in fact, Ric Flair. Nature Boy Ric Flair draws number 1, which I thought was interesting. He won the whole thing, drawing number 3 back in 1992. We had Fit Finlay coming out at number 2, so they didn't do any sort of fun number 1 and 2 spot for this, just two good grizzled veterans fighting with each other. So Flair and Finlay are in at number 2. Kenny Dykstra, former leader of the Spirit Squad and guy that looks freakishly like Owen Hart, comes in at number 3. He's another guy that didn't stick around very long. I think WWE had high hopes for him, but if I remember right, I think it was just too much, too quick for him. He was young. I think he had some maturity and attitude problems, and he did not last. Nobody gets eliminated quickly in this either, because you had Matt Hardy coming out at number 4 and Edge coming out at number 5. And it was kind of cool to see Matt Hardy and Edge mixing it up for the first time in about a year and a half, right after their big dramatic feud in 2005 that involved Alita and the Loser Leaves Town match on Raw. I even covered that show, by the way. I'll put a link to that in the upper right of the screen there as well. I believe that took place on Raw Homecoming in October of 2005, and I reviewed that whole show about a year or so ago, and I talked a lot about that Matt Hardy and Edge match. I'm curious to know where their relationship was at this time in 2007. I don't know if they had completely patched things up. I know they're cool now, but I'm not sure how long it really took the two of them to come back together after all of that shit that went down. But like I said, nothing really interesting happened in the first several minutes here. Ric Flair would eventually go out into the outside of the ring and grab a steel chair and bring it into the ring with the intention of delivering a concerto to Edge, but he's immediately stopped and eliminated by Edge and Kenny Dykstra. And as Kenny Dykstra is celebrating, Edge immediately tosses his dumb ass out. We then had Tommy Dreamer out at number 6, Sabu out at number 7, who immediately grabs a table and sets it up on the outside of the ring. We had Gregory Helms coming out at number 8, Shelton Benjamin out at number 9, and Kane out at number 10. During all of these entrants, nobody got eliminated. Not until Kane got there and immediately got in the ring, grabbed a hold of Sabu, and put his dumb ass through the table that he set up on the outside of the ring for no fucking reason at all. We had a very young CM Punk coming out at number 11. Man, to see him here with that long hair and a lot less tattoos and that old theme music they used to play for him was pretty crazy. King Booker would come out at number 12, and you guys have to help me. When did Booker T leave? Didn't he leave in 2007 sometime and head off to TNA? So I think he was actually on his way out of the company around this time. Actually, if memory serves, and again, you guys please have to help me, I think maybe he worked Triple H that year at SummerSlam. I think that was Triple H's return match. He beat Booker T, and then Booker T would leave and go to TNA. Correct me if I have that wrong. Super Crazy would be out at number 13, Jeff Hardy at number 14, and the Sandman at number 15. And I loved this too because Sandman is another guy that I just don't like. As soon as he came in the ring, he immediately got eliminated. But, you know, he was the 15th guy, and we are now halfway through this Royal Rumble, and it was extremely uneventful up to this point. Like, not much had gone on. We saw no surprise entrants. We saw no unique matchups, no surprise eliminations. Only a few guys have even been tossed out by this point. But the second half of the Rumble would pick up a lot more. We had Randy Orton coming out at number 16, so now he's in there with his rated RKO cohort, Edge. They would both eliminate the Hardy Boys, both Hardys, so Jeff and Matt both got dumped by rated RKO. We had Chris Benoit coming out at number 17, and of course, this is January of 2007, 6 months later. He would be dead, along with Nancy and his son, Daniel, which is just horrific to think about, that we are watching Benoit here in the final 6 months of his life. Absolutely crazy. Rob Van Dam would hit the ring at number 18, and that's when JBL mentioned that at that time there were 6 former world champions in the ring. Chris Benoit, Edge, Randy Orton, Kane, Booker T, and RVD. So the ring is filled up with some beef, some big stars, and a lot of names are in that ring at this point, and now it's starting to get good. They did a Roddy Piper, Bad News Brown throwback. I just talked about that in my Royal Rumble 1990 review. They did that here again with Kane and Booker T. Kane would wind up eliminating King Booker. And then right after he's eliminated, he immediately gets right back in the ring, goes after Kane and eliminates Kane, and the two of them brawl all the way to the backstage area. So a little throwback there to 1990, and hell, they might have done that same spot another time or two as well. We had the world's largest love machine, Viscera, Big Daddy V, Mabel, whatever you want to call him. He's out at number 19. Johnny Nitro at number 20, Kevin Thorne at number 21, and Bob Holly at number 22. We would see Shelton Benjamin kind of pulling a Kofi before Kofi was even in the company. He's hanging on and saving himself a couple of times there, one of which was in a very Kofi Kingston-like way. Business starts to pick up even a little bit more when Shawn Michaels comes out at number 23. He gets in the ring and immediately eliminates Finlay, who had been in there since number 2. He went 32 minutes in this Royal Rumble, which was really impressive for Finlay at that time, so that was pretty cool. He would then, or Shawn Michaels, I should say, would then go on to super kick Big Viscera, who kind of falls into the ropes, and everybody seizes that opportunity. Everybody that's in the ring gathers around him and dumps him over the top rope. So it took about 7 or 8 guys to get Big Vis out of the ring. Shawn Michaels would then eliminate Shelton Benjamin. So Benjamin is gone. We would have Chris Masters coming out at the number 24 spot, Chavo Guerrero coming out at number 25, MVP at number 26, and Carlito at number 27. You fast forward a little bit further, you've got RVD drop kicking Chris Masters over the top rope. Never a big Chris Masters fan either. I can understand why WWE liked him, but again, much like Kennedy and Dykstra and Kevin Thorne and some other names I've mentioned here in this show, he was not in the company for very long. We then had the Great Khali come out at number 28. Now, he was right in the middle of his huge push around this time. He was beating everybody, including, I think, Undertaker and Kane, I believe, at WrestleMania, right? So he comes out at number 28 and destroys everybody. So you had a lot of talent in this ring right now, and Khali gets rid of all of them. Get this. He eliminates Bob Holly, then Chris Benoit, then The Miz comes in at number 29, and as soon as he's in the ring, Khali eliminates him. Miz might be in Bushwhacker Luke category after that elimination, and then after that, Khali would go on to eliminate RVD, CM Punk, Carlito, and Chavo Guerrero Jr. So that's a lot of people. Bob Holly, Benoit, Miz, RVD, Punk, Carlito, Chavo. Holy shit. So Khali cleans fucking house. That only leaves one person left to come in just when the announcers are thinking that nobody can stop the Great Khali. Who's going to stop him? The lights go out, we hear the gong, and The Undertaker is out at number 30. He comes right in the ring, goes right after the Great Khali, punches him, kicks him, goes to work on him, and eliminates him all by himself. So after Khali completely cleans house, The Undertaker comes in there and gets rid of him. It was brilliant. We then get down to a pretty fun Final Four. We've got The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Edge, and Randy Orton is your Final Four. Now, Shawn is injured on the outside of the ring. He took a spill out through the ropes. He's not eliminated. He's on the outside, selling the injury forever. And we get a super long double team with Edge and Randy Orton double teaming The Undertaker, beating the shit out of him, hitting him with chair shots. Taker's busted open, and Randy and Edge are just working him over good. So right when they're about to finish him off for good, they've got Taker in the ring. He's on the mat. They're going to hit him with a concerto. That's when Shawn Michaels, who has been out of the ring for so long that JBL and maybe some of the other announcers completely forgot about him. He resurfaces, comes in out of nowhere, saves The Undertaker from the concerto. Randy Orton goes to attack Shawn. Shawn backdrops Randy Orton over the top rope. Edge then goes for Shawn and gets super kicked in the face, and he goes over the top rope. So in about 4 seconds, Shawn hit the ring and eliminated Randy Orton and Edge. And he's laying in the ring now flat on his back, side by side with The Undertaker, who's also flat on his back. And this is our final 2. Now, you guys have to appreciate how awesome this was. I remember when I saw this and I was watching this on pay-per-view, I was freaking out because I'm like, holy shit, it has been 10 years. Well, 9, really, since we have seen these two guys in the ring together. Royal Rumble 1998 was the last time. That's when Shawn had the back injury. He was out of the ring for 4 years, and when he came back, he and Taker, I believe, were on separate brands. I don't recall any other time where the two of these mixed it up. Unless they traded some blows in a previous Royal Rumble that I'm forgetting or something like that. For the most part, Shawn and Taker remained separated for years in the WWE. And think about it. This was just a taste This was just a taste of what would come 2 years later. We would have to still wait another 2 full years before those two guys would change the business at WrestleMania 25. So this was awesome. Your final 2 in the ring are both on their backs. It's Undertaker, it's Shawn, it's 2 baby faces. One's in his home state, one's in his hometown. The crowd doesn't know who the fuck to cheer for, and it was amazing. And we do the simultaneous sit-up. Undertaker sits up, and then Shawn Michaels does the kip-up. And we basically get a one-on-one match. The two of them work for about 10 minutes. And give us a little taste of what it's like to see Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker again. Lots of close calls. Undertaker goes for the big boot in the corner, but Taker catches his leg over the top rope, and Shawn nearly dumps him, and he's barely hanging on. We get a top rope spot where both guys are about to fall over trying to superplex each other. After a good little, 7 to 10 minute match there and a lot of close calls, we see Shawn getting The Undertaker staggered, and he's going for the super kick. He goes to kick The Undertaker. Undertaker grabs Shawn's leg, and because Shawn is so little and Taker is so big and strong, he just muscles and picks up and throws, dumps Shawn Michaels right over his back after catching the super kick attempt, and Shawn spills to the outside and is eliminated, and The Undertaker wins the Royal Rumble. One of my favorite finishes ever in a Royal Rumble. I think I'm still going with Royal Rumble 2001 as far as my favorite finish ever goes. Steve Austin and Kane, with Austin smashing him in the face 3 times with a chair and then clotheslining him over the top rope to get the win. That to me was such a great visual, but this one was damn close, and it was great. It was amazing for a fan of this time in 2007 to see Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker for the first time in nearly a decade. Great stuff all around. Like I said, the Royal Rumble itself was pretty uneventful. I mean, the Royal Rumble match, not a lot of surprise entrants, nothing like that, and no really big surprises took place. But the end was so good. I loved the elimination of Orton and Edge by Shawn, leaving him and Taker in there alone. Just all around great shit. Now, Shawn, wouldn't matter that he lost the Royal Rumble because he would wind up going into WrestleMania to face John Cena for the title anyway, while Taker would be facing Batista at WrestleMania. So even though Shawn lost the Royal Rumble, get this, he still main evented WrestleMania. Taker and Batista's match was earlier on in the card. So even Shawn, as the loser here, he got the match that you're supposed to get as the prize for winning the Royal Rumble, which is kind of interesting when you look back on that. But overall, this was a really fun pay-per-view to watch. I enjoyed it immensely. I'm glad that this has been recommended to me several times because it's been many years since I took a look back on it. And based on the strength of that John Cena and Umaga match and the great finish here in the Royal Rumble, I put this show on my list as one of the greatest Royal Rumbles in history. So please feel free to leave me all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. What are your memories of it? What was your reaction? What do you remember about this at the time and how you felt? And all of that stuff. And if I left anything out or if there's any great spots or moments here that I forgot to mention or something like that, let me know in the comments below as well. I want to thank you for taking another trip down memory lane. And before you know it, it's going to be WrestleMania season. And as usual, I've got a lot of great things planned for that. So stay tuned to the channel. It's going to be a fun year in 2020. Y'all take care of yourselves, be good, and I will catch you back on the channel very soon. Until then, peace.